Turn on any mainstream news channel right now, and you will hear the narrative about the American US debt. You will hear about China, who is buying up the country, and you will also hear about other countries and how they are involved in the American debt. You will hear about tariffs, and you will hear about all kind of conversations. You see flashy headlines, and you are also warned about the upcoming pending doom events from your prophets. Here at TCLN Network, one of the things I like to do is go in and look at the data. This is education for our elevation and leadership insight to your advantage. So we're going to look at the data today. We're going to talk about debt. Yes, U.S. American debt. So currently, America has amassed $39 million worth of debt. Now, why should this be important to you? Because you, as American citizens, pay for it. The United States government doesn't necessarily owe foreign nations as much as it owes you. What you and I need to understand is this: the national debt is not a Washington problem. It is a hidden structural tax on your and I progress. Let's talk about debt, baby. Let's talk about you and me. Let's talk about all the good things and all the bad things that may be. Let's talk about debt. Let's talk about debt right here on TCLN Network, right after this.
Never stop, I'll get it if I want it. Gotta make to myself a promise. I won't quit, keep going till I got it. I won't give up till I'm on top, yeah. You know I'm always honest. There ain't no way I'm ever stopping till I'm on top, yeah.
Over 75% of record-breaking debt is domestically, not foreign. Every single time that you pay into a retirement fund, a workplace pension, or a social security system, that cash does not sit in the vault. The federal government legally takes that surplus, spends it, and funds it to its daily deficit, and replaces your hard-earned money with a government IOU. You guys remember when we used to say our vows? IOU, AEIOU, AEIOU. Looks like they were training us for a very long time. Why is debt important right now? Well, a lot of people have transitioned out of jobs and they've transitioned into being entrepreneurs or self-employed. Well, believe it or not, the situations that are going on with debt, it will affect you. It don't just affect you, it affects your generations, and affect your children. It affects their colleges, it affects taxes, it affects everything, right? Because the government is burning over 1 trillion a year just to pay interest on what is borrowed from its own citizens. It's actively crowding out private capital. The structure loop forces long-term inflation, drives up costs of businesses, loans, and devalues the purchasing power of your savings. Now, understand this one thing: the war in Iran and between Israel, of course, that involves debt. So, can you see all of these compounds will continue to not just affect you, not just affect your income, but it will also affect the income of your children and your children's children. If the system is running a permanent deficit using the public's money, relying on traditional safety nets that are no longer an option, true financial clarity is requiring that you and I shift from a mentality from state dependency to self-reliance, which is pretty much what in this day of social media and the internet, pretty much everybody's been doing for quite a while. But I think people really don't understand that even with the money that you're bringing in with this deficit, it could still affect your income or your bottom line. So what made me tap into this is that I was looking at an article or something that came across my, phone as we're going through our phones and scrolling. And I seen something about Dallas itself, Dallas, Texas, where I live, being in a deficit. And then I started doing my research. I said, well, what is going on with debt, right? I wanted to know what was out there, what's going on with debt. And so, of course, I came across this AP article. And according to the Washington Associated Press, the national debt has surpassed a record of $39 trillion. The unprecedented figure highlights competing administrative priorities, from passing a massive tax law, boosting defense spending, and immigration enforcement chipping away at the debt itself. The Government Accountability Office outlines some of the impact of rising government debt on Americans, including higher borrowing costs for things like mortgages and cars, lower wages from businesses having to less money available for interest, and more expensive goods and services. But let's go a little bit deeper than what is the surface. We know about all that stuff, right? Let's take it a little bit deeper right here on TCLN Network. This is no longer a Washington debate. The US debt has actually surpassed the US economy. The deeper issue is that America has built a system that is heavily dependent on debt. We all know that that is not good. In war, in economy, in jobs, in loans, in banking, in anything, in households, just American households in general, being dependent on debt is just the worst thing, right? Think about you as an individual. When you are dependent on debt, how does that make you feel? Let's just say that you're living from paycheck to paycheck and you're constantly living in credit card cycles. That doesn't make you feel good, right? Well, think about the government itself. It is constantly living dependency on debt. That is not good at all. That's not good for me. That's not good for you. That's not good for our government. That's not good for collaboration with other nations, because he who is enslaved to the debt, guess what? Is also enslaved to who? The lender. And that is not a good thing. I want you to comment below if you are experiencing debt. Now, in this economy where you're able to get online and make money, um, it's funny because during our time, everybody's just able to just make money, right? Just get online, make a lot of money. And at the same time, there are still people who are suffering. So it's always been like that. I don't care what it was. I don't care if it was in the past, the old depression time, or times of suffering, or times of elevation. There's always been those who are suffering. There's always been those who are doing good. So I would like for you to comment below if you're going through a deficit in your own personal finances right now. You don't have to tell us all your business, but if you're dealing with a student loan, no, or a mortgage that is just inflated, are you dealing with high taxes? What are you dealing with right now? Just put it in the comments below and share, how does it make you feel? And what do you feel that our government is doing that they keep inflating debt like that? I'm gonna get a little bit deeper into it. I'm gonna get a little bit deeper into this, but what do you feel that the government is doing? Give a little bit of your insight. Of course, you know this is an education channel, and we love to educate to elevate. So let's help educate and elevate one another. The problem is this: the danger is not just the debt itself. The danger is what happens when the interest payments begin consuming larger portions of the national budget. The more money spent maintaining debt, the less flexibility America has to invest in infrastructure, education, healthcare, innovation, emergency response, or any type of long term national development. And these are all things that we need to survive as what? A nation. And underneath the official debt number sits another challenge that many Americans are not fully aware of: underfunded structure obligations tied to programs like Social Security and Medicare. Treasury, according to the US Treasury debt to the penny database, debt held by the public, which is investors, foreign governments, Federal Reserve, and pension funds. And then you have intra-government debt. This is money that the government owes to programs like Social Security and Medicare trust funds. Recent Treasury linked reporting shows that debt crossed that 39 trillion mark in 2026. Now, who pays this debt? We're getting a little bit of education today in debt, just in case you're one of those people that you know about debt, you hear about debt, but you kind of don't know the details of debt, right? We're going to get a little bit into that. Who pays this debt? Ultimately, the American people pay the debt directly and indirectly. And here's how that actually works. Just in case you didn't know, of course, like I always tell you guys, when I get into research, I learn just as much as you learn, and you may know more than me, or I may know something that I pulled up through research that maybe can help you. So, here's how it works: the US government borrows money by selling Treasury securities, Treasury bills, notes, and bonds. Buyers include American investors, banks, pension funds, foreign governments like Japan or China, the Federal Reserve, mutual funds, and retirement accounts. The government then owes interest and repayment on those securities. So, now who covers that repayment? American taxpayers. Isn't that something? Through federal income taxes, payroll taxes, corporate taxes, tariffs and fees, and inflationary monetary policies that reduce purchasing power over time. Now, guys, do you see how that works? This is why I love YouTube. Just in case you missed something and you need to rehear it again, always stop, go back, rehear it again so that you can process what was just laid out. This is education for our elevation. And right now, what I'm talking about is taxes. A major issue today is interest payments alone. The US government now spends over 1 trillion annually on interest costs. Do you hear that, guys? 1 trillion annually on interest costs. Not paying down debt itself, just servicing it. So do you see how that really affects us as US American citizens? That means just a cycle of debt that passes from you, that passes to your children, that passes to your children's children. That means a growing portion of the tax revenue goes toward creditors instead of infrastructure, education, healthcare, and national development. There are basically four ways the government manages massive debt. Number one, raises taxes. Citizens and businesses pay more. Number two, cuts spending. Programs and services get reduced. Number three, borrow more money. Now, I'm sorry, new debt is issued to pay old debt obligations. And number four, inflate currency. The value of money declines over time, making old debt easier to repay in cheaper dollars. This is why many economists closely keep a watch on inflation and Federal Reserve policy. Again, if you need to process, if you anything like me, you're listening to this key information and you need to process it. This is what I love about YouTube. You can always stop, rewind, and go listen so you can process how that's breaking down, okay? Now, as you know, TCLN Network is the Creative Leadership Network. And what I did is I put this channel together so that you can understand that this is education for our elevation, but it also gives us a leadership advantage. Why does this give us a leadership advantage? Right here on this channel at TCLN Network, I like to talk about politicians. I like to talk about the decision making that they make that affect us all. But I also like to take those insights so that we can understand how does this affect us. And this gives us information so that we can be sharper and brighter and become leaders ourselves, right? We're not just here to be led by people for the rest of our lives, right? We are here to learn and to grow. And if you're going to have a business, you're going to have a company, or whatever you're going to do, you're also going to be leading people, whether you're leading your household, whether you're leading a team on a project, or whether you're leading people in your own company. This is information that you need to be able to have, just basic information. And what I do is I take that news, I make it relevant, I make it educational, and I give us a leadership advantage. So here go the TCL leadership lens right now. Let's get into it. Real leadership is never about avoiding hard truth. Real leadership is about looking at what is the problem, what is going on. And basically, by the time news hits you, right, unless it's just some type of positive news about a baby being born or something like that, or some type of great college graduation, most news is giving us insight of what's going on around our world. So, what are we talking about right now? We are talking about the U.S. national debt. That's our problem because that affects us all. 39 trillion and constant national interest being borrowed on, that means that that is a cycle of debt for Americans. So let's look at this from a leadership perspective and TCL in particularly leadership perspective. America's debt conversation reveals a deeper leadership challenge. Short term thinking versus long term thinking. Too often, leaders, our American leaders, focus on election cycles instead of generational stability. And citizens themselves often disconnect from understanding how debt, inflation, taxes, monetary policy affect their daily lives. This moment requires leadership on every single level: government leadership, community leadership, business leadership, and personal leadership, which is you and I. Personal accountability, right? Because we dealing with our government debt, but we also have to deal with our personal debt. All of that compounded, hmm, you guys, I want you to stay with me. I got a bonus for you. I got a real bonus for you. So make sure you stay with me, right? And if you're getting something out of this, make sure you are hitting that subscribe button. Make sure you are sharing this video with somebody else that needs to know more about taxes, more about debt. Because again, we know about debt. People have credit cards, people have student loans, but we don't break this stuff down, right? So always share information. Like I said, you may know more than me, or I may went and got some research and I may be sharing something with you. But I guarantee you, there is somebody out there that needs this information. So make sure you're hitting that like button, you're sharing it so that this video can get out to as many as people as possible. And make sure you subscribe for more weekly content that educate us to elevate us and that gives us a leadership advantage. For TCLN, one deep leadership question is this: when a nation becomes heavily debt dependent, future generations inherit that obligation that they did not create. Most of the debt we're dealing with today is that debt that we did not create, unless it's personal debt. The debate is no longer just economic, it becomes moral, political, and strategic. What should government fund? What is sustainable growth? What happens when interest consumes national priorities? Can a country remain globally dominant while structurally dependent on constant borrowing? Americans have never had a debt repayment day. We've had many days, right? Million Man March Day. We had Women's Day, right? We've had all kinds of days: Father's Day, Women's Day, Memorial Day, all kinds of days. But you know what kind of debt we never a day we've never really had? A national repayment debt. Do you think that we can literally pay back 39 trillion in a day? Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. But I do know this. I do know that we have to make some serious changes. We have to. America cannot continue like this. Like, we just cannot. If we continue like this is what's called generational lack, generational poverty, generational, because this is not just affecting middle class now. I'm sorry, this is not just affecting lower class, this affects middle class, low income class. This is affecting the majority of the population. And if we continue this way, this is not going to be healthy for America. This is not going to even be healthy for the rich because somehow this is going to interplay into our future. And what is our future? Future businesses, future education, future healthcare. Again, reiteration on the things that we should have balance on so that we can continue to be a better economy and not a debt-ridden economy. Let's look at how Americans deal with debt today. Today, Americans deal with debt indirectly through four main channels. Number one, taxes. Every working American contributes through income taxes, payroll taxes, which is known as Social Security and Medicare, corporate taxes, which is indirectly affects wages and prices. This is most direct form of participation. Interest rates impact because of national borrowing, mortgage rates, credit card rates, and business loan rates. They are all influenced by government debt levels and treasury yields. So Americans feel this in return in housing affordability, borrowing costs, cost of living pressure, inflation and purchasing power, debt expansion, and monetary policy interact in ways that can weaken purchasing power over time and raises prices on goods and services. So the payment is partially hidden in everyday cost increases. Now, I made a video a while back and I was talking about tariffs and the importance of tariffs because we really wasn't looking at just how much tariffs affect us. Let me break this down to you. Let me make it simple and let me make it plain. Pay attention. Every time you swipe that credit card, you are paying a tax. I said every time you swipe that credit card, you are paying a tax. Let me show you how. You get paid. You go swipe your card. You go to the store, sales tax. You have to pay your rent. They have this little thing where you have to pay a fee. May not be a tax, but you're still paying some type of fee, right? And then you go every time you got to pay for the baby's milk. You got to pay for something. You got to pay for some new shirts or some new clothing or something like that. Tax. And then you go and you paying your employment tax, your income tax, Social Security tax, right? And then you go and you paying for all of this different stuff and you're constantly paying a tax. And then you go and you pay for your food and you pay for your items and you're paying for all these things, a tax, tax, tax. Let's just think about it. You may swipe your card maybe 5 times out of a day. Out of that 5 times, you have paid a tax. I want you to look at that on a personal level. Just look at that on a personal level. All of those taxes may not look like much, right? A little bit of here, a little bit of there. But what does it look like over a year, a period of a year? Now, let's put how many Americans, 360, 50, I'm like 300 and I think 50 something million Americans. Now think about all the different households, all the different people spending out of that household every day shopping with those cards, whether cash or with the card, it doesn't matter, and all of the taxes that you're paying. That is a lot of taxes. Now think about tariffs. So that's what I wanted the people to understand. That is really important. That's a lot of taxes, and we don't think about it in that way sometimes, right? Well, we better get to thinking because we're not just looking at our personal tax. We're looking at our national tax, national debt. So we're not just looking at our personal, but we're looking at national debt. And who pays for national debt again? You and I. Who pay for our personal taxes again? And you and I. Mm, mm, mm. Guys, I got a bonus for you. I want you guys to stay hooked with me, okay? Because this bonus is going to matter. It's going to shed some light into this, right? The most important direct form of participation, interest rate impact, because of the national borrowing, mortgage rates, credit card rates, business loan rates. They're all influenced by government debt levels and treasury yields. So payment is partially hidden in everyday cost increases. Let me say it again. Voting and policy choices, the most important long-term mechanism is political. Americans choose leaders who decide taxes, spending levels, and borrowing levels. So the debt is ultimately shaped by democratic decision making over time. The system works like this: government runs deficit, borrows money from markets, repays over decades. Citizens continuously fund it through taxes and economic participation. If we do not understand debt, inflation, leadership, and economic structure, then we cannot meaningfully shape our futures. Those are things that we need to understand. Believe it or not, guys, when you're watching Cardi B, Nicki Minaj, all of these different people that you consider to be your entertainers, Denzel Washington, all of your favorite actors, I promise you, in the jobs that they do, even Tiffany Haddish, Miss Funny Girl, these people, whether you know it or not, they either, number one, understand some of this stuff themselves, or number two, they got somebody in their corner that do and that's giving them the insight. You understand that? Guys, this is very important. Let me tell you how I know that Tiffany Haddish is a very smart person and she understands things very well. Tiffany Haddish, just in case you didn't notice, she opened up a grocery store in the middle of Compton, where she comes from, right? In order for you to be able to do that, you have to understand business, you have to understand investing, you have to understand certain things, right? Tiffany ain't no okey doke. Tiffany may be getting out there acting a fool, but that doesn't mean that Tiffany is a okey doke. And what I try to get you to understand right here on TCLN, I know you guys may say, oh, but we like entertainment. Guys, you have to have both. You have to have education and you have to have entertainment. You understand? If you just feel like you got to have entertainment, fine. But your entertainers are not stupid. They know investments, they know real estate, they know all these things. And if they don't know, like I said, they are paying somebody that's in their corner that is constantly keeping them informed. Well, you need education. And what I decided to do is that what's more important than anything? Current events, you guys, current events. And this is why I took TCLN Network, because I knew that news was important. I knew current events it was important. And I wanted to give us the leadership advantage. I wanted to give us leadership insights, news insights, education, so that you are informed on topics like taxes, on topics like politics, your politicians in your local area. Now, don't get me wrong, I can't cover every news piece, I can't cover everybody, but you know what I can do? I can bring the most things that are important to us, that is social, systemic, you understand what I'm saying, and spiritual issues that affect us every day. So that's what I do here at TCLN. So make sure you are subscribing, hitting that like button, upping this channel so this channel is going out to other people that's going to need it. Remember, education, entertainment. Make sure you're getting both, okay? Now, remember when I said I would have a bonus for you? This is the bonus, guys. I went and looked because I wanted to see what was the biblical. What is the biblical thing? What is the biblical thing when it comes to what we call all of this information on what's called debt? Well, I came across a few scriptures where kings are warned not to multiply wealth or power excessively because it could corrupt judgment and move the nation away from righteousness. That principle maps out surprisingly well on our modern governments and states today. When governments expand its endlessly through debt finance systems, the danger not only financial collapse, the danger not only hits on financial collapse, but moral decay, dependence, and distorted priorities. The Bible also talks about prophets. Prophets repeatedly condemn exploitative taxation, dishonest, dishonest weights and measures, corruption, oppression through economic systems, leaders enriching themselves while burdening the people. Isn't that what's going on today? For example, the book of Habakkuk warns against building wealth through unjust gain and endless pledges and debt. And last, the book of Isaiah. National decline is often tied to moral corruption amongst leaders, not merely just military weakness. Another important detail is this. In Leviticus 25, the people are warned and commanded to practice debt release cycles and land restoration through the year of Jubilee. The idea was prevent permanent debt slavery, prevent infinite accumulation, preserve social stability, stop generational economic collapse. That shows that God does understand, the God of the Bible does understand that unchecked debt systems can eventually destroy communities and freedom. So, my advice to any of you leaders that you are out there looking today, overlook some of those scriptures if you like, look at how they would process it, but also go back earlier in the video and process some of the things. And what I want to leave you with today before I check out here on TCLN Network is some key solutions that American can use to solve some of these issues, okay? So let's just give you a few details. Expanding productive industries and economic growth. So this will be more for leaders who understand these kind of arenas. Reducing reckless government spending, reforming long-term entitlement structures responsibly, increasing financial literacy amongst Americans in general, encouraging entrepreneurship, innovation, and ownership, and building strong local economies instead of total dependence on federal systems, creating long term bipartisan economic planning instead of permanent crisis management. And individually, Americans need to focus more on this. That's you and I: financial education, multiple income streams, debt reduction, ownership skills, and economic adaptability. So that's just a little bit of biblical insight mixed with just regular practical of what leaders can be looking at. Guys, you need to come up with some innovative ideas. You need to bring in your think tank coming with you leaders of some of the things I've named off, and just individuals such as ourselves who are focused on our everyday lives. Those are some of the things that we can focus on, okay? So I hope that this episode spoke to you today. I hope that you got a little bit more insights into debt, how it affects us, how that $1 trillion is rolling over, not just into us, not into what's going to be our later years, but also, guys, going to be into your children, your children's children. So you need to be doing something different that is preparing them so that they can rise above those debt levels on a personal level, so their incomes can be higher, and their education, their knowledge. Make sure that you are forming your households, okay? So again, I hope this episode has helped you. This is TCLN Network. Make sure you check out my TCLN Clarity Intensive. The description is right there. Go to my link right there in the description. Check out all my products and services. That way you can support Bookstore anyway. You can support channels like this, okay? Thank you so much for joining in. I am IBK. If you have any questions or any information or any subjects that you would like for me to cover, please just leave it in the comments below. If you would like to be on the show and you have a special topic that you would love to talk about and share, make sure you check out me at ibkbooks@gmail.com. All of that is in the description below. You guys have a wonderful week. And as former reporter, anchor, and as CBS former reporter, anchor Dan Rather would say, courage, my friends, courage.